Every year, millions of people pay $50, $80, sometimes $200 a month for gym memberships. They've got machines worth thousands of dollars, protein shakes lined up on the counter, Bluetooth earbuds synced to their custom playlists, and most of them couldn't do 50 push-ups if their life depended on it. Meanwhile, behind concrete walls with no equipment, no supplements, and meals that would make a nutritionist cry, inmates are building physiques that look like they were carved out of granite. 210 push-ups in a single session, 400 pull-ups before lunch, squats that would buckle a Division I athlete's knees. Here's what nobody in the fitness industry wants to admit. Some of the most effective training systems ever created didn't come from sports science labs or celebrity trainers. They came from prison cells smaller than your bathroom.
The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way.
The first method is something that came out of one of the most notorious prisons in North America. In the Juarez Valley prison in Mexico, inmates developed a push-up protocol so brutal that completing it earns immediate respect on the yard. The system works on a principle called training density, which means how much work you can pack into the smallest amount of time. Forget 3 sets of 10 with 2 minutes of scrolling Instagram between each one. This is 20 sets of push-ups with nothing separating them except an 8-foot walk across your cell. Here's the thing about how the Juarez Valley method actually works. The odd-numbered sets count down from 20. The even-numbered sets count up from 1. So the first set is 20 reps. Walk 8 feet. Second set is 1 rep. Walk back. Third set is 19. Fourth set is 2. They meet in the middle, and by the time you're done, you've completed 210 push-ups. The target for a seasoned practitioner is finishing the whole thing in under 10 minutes. Getting it done in under 8 minutes is considered elite, the kind of performance that tells everyone around you that you're not someone to test. Physiologically, the reason this works so well comes down to something called metabolic stress. When your muscles are working that hard with that little rest, lactic acid and hydrogen ions flood the tissue. That acidic environment triggers a signaling pathway in the body that drives muscle protein synthesis and growth hormone release. It's why inmates who never touch a dumbbell can develop chest and tricep density that rivals guys benching 300 pounds. The short rest periods also mean the phosphocreatine system never fully recovers between sets, which forces the body to recruit more muscle fibers just to keep going. Simple math, really. More fibers recruited means more fibers that grow. That solves the problem of chest and arm development. What it doesn't solve is how to train the entire body when you don't know what's coming next. That's where the second method comes in. In prisons across the United States, the United Kingdom, and parts of South America, inmates use a standard 52-card deck as a full-body workout generator. They call it the deck of pain, and there's a reason. Each suit gets assigned to a different exercise. Hearts might be sit-ups, spades are push-ups, diamonds are squats, clubs are burpees. You flip a card, and whatever number comes up, that's your rep count. Our face cards are worth 10. Aces are worth 11 or 15, depending on who's running the session. The real brutality isn't in any single card, it's in the sequences. The probability of pulling 3 or 4 high cards of the same suit back-to-back is low, mathematically speaking. When it happens, and it will happen, you're suddenly doing 40 push-ups with no warning and no rest. By the time you've gone through the entire deck, you've knocked out somewhere between 380 and 400 total repetitions spread across 4 different movement patterns. That's a full-body session generated by pure randomness, and your body never adapts because the order is never the same twice. In group settings on the prison yard, quitting before the deck is finished carries real consequences. Social ostracism, loss of standing, sometimes worse. That pressure creates an intensity that no personal trainer's motivational speech can replicate. The deck doesn't care if you're tired. The deck doesn't negotiate. Makes sense, right? Randomness keeps the body guessing, and social pressure keeps the effort high. That combination covers general conditioning. What it doesn't address is building raw, bone-deep strength in isolation, the kind of strength that comes from decades of having nothing except four walls and your own body weight. Charles Bronson spent more than 30 years in solitary confinement in the British prison system. He's widely regarded as one of the most physically powerful prisoners in history. During those decades alone, he developed a training system he later detailed in his book, Solitary Fitness, and the numbers he claims are staggering. 172 push-ups in 60 seconds, on bending steel bars with his bare hands. Whether every claim is literally accurate is debatable, but what's not debatable is the method behind them. Bronson's system is built on two pillars. The first is extreme volume spread across the entire day. His morning block alone consists of 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and 15 to 20 minutes of shadow boxing. The afternoon adds another 100 push-ups, 100 leg raises, and 100 star jumps. The evening is reserved for deep breathing and isometric holds, things like holding the bottom position of a squat or a push-up for as long as possible. The second pillar is what makes Bronson's method genuinely different from typical calisthenics. He calls it dynamic tension. Instead of just pumping out reps as fast as possible, you deliberately contract the opposing muscle during every movement. During a push-up, you're not just pushing up, you're actively resisting yourself on the way down. During a curl motion with no weight, you're squeezing your bicep against the force of your own tricep. This creates resistance without any external load, and it's a principle that goes all the way back to old-time strongmen like Charles Atlas in the 1920s. Here's the thing about isometric training that most people overlook entirely. When Bronson pushes against a concrete wall with maximum effort for 30 to 60 seconds, he's recruiting motor units that dynamic movement often misses. Research on isometric contractions shows they can activate up to 95% of available muscle fibers at peak effort, compared to roughly 88 to 92% during typical concentric movements. Over 30 years, that difference compounds into strength that's genuinely difficult to explain by conventional standards. Bronson's approach handles brute force and muscular endurance. What it doesn't specifically target is explosive lower body power, the kind that translates to real-world athletic performance. For that, there's a method tied to one of the most famous athletes who ever lived. During his incarceration in the early 1990s, Mike Tyson maintained a training regimen that kept his legendary leg power intact without ever touching a squat rack. The specific protocol that other inmates watched him perform involved 10 playing cards laid out in a line on the floor, about 4 inches apart. The exercise sounds simple until you actually try it. You squat down, pick up the first card, walk to the second card, squat to place the first card on top of it. Then squat again to pick both cards up, one at a time. Walk to the third card, squat to place each card down individually. Squat to pick each one back up individually. Every new card in the line adds more squats because you're stacking and unstacking the entire accumulated pile. By the time you reach the 10th card, a single pass through the line has produced 100 deep squats with constant up and down movement and 0 rest. Tyson reportedly did 3 to 5 complete sets. That's 300 to 500 squats in a single session, performed with a movement pattern that keeps the quadriceps, glutes, and knee ligaments under continuous tension. An elite-level practitioner can finish a set of 100 in about 3 minutes. When the sheer volume of repetitive deep squatting builds the kind of leg endurance that explains why Tyson could maintain explosive punching power deep into the late rounds of a fight. Legs are the engine of every punch, and this protocol kept that engine running on all cylinders. Pretty clever, right? 10 cards, 0 equipment, hundreds of squats. The simplicity is part of what makes it so effective. There's nothing to set up, nothing to break, and nothing standing between you and the work except your willingness to keep bending your knees. That handles explosive power. What it doesn't give you is a long-term system, a structured path from beginner to genuinely superhuman strength over months and years. A book called Convict Conditioning, written under the pseudonym Paul Wade, claims to systematize the bodyweight training knowledge passed down through generations of inmates in prisons like San Quentin and Angola. Wade's central argument is that the strongest prisoners aren't the ones doing thousands of easy reps. They're the ones who've mastered exercise variations so difficult that their own body weight becomes equivalent to lifting hundreds of pounds. Wade identifies what he calls the Big Six: push-ups, squats, pull-ups, leg raises, bridges, and handstand push-ups. For each one, he lays out 10 progressive levels. A complete beginner might start with wall push-ups at level 1. The ultimate goal, what Wade calls the master step, is a strict one-arm push-up. For squats, level 1 is a shoulder stand squat. The master step is a full pistol squat on one leg. For pull-ups, the progression runs from vertical rows using a door frame all the way to a one-arm pull-up. Here's where things get interesting from a joint health perspective. Wade argues that the reason so many gym-goers develop chronic shoulder pain, knee problems, and lower back issues is that their muscles get strong faster than their connective tissue can adapt. When you add 10 pounds to a bench press every week, your pectoral muscles might keep up, but your rotator cuff tendons are falling behind. The slow, methodical progression of convict conditioning forces tendons and ligaments to strengthen at the same rate as the muscles they support. Wade points to an inmate at San Quentin, a man in his 70s who could reportedly do pull-ups using only his index fingers as evidence of what decades of progressive tendon strengthening can produce. That kind of slow progression builds a foundation that's nearly indestructible. What it doesn't prepare you for is the mental dimension, the ability to keep going when every signal in your body is screaming at you to stop. For that level of psychological conditioning, the methods get considerably darker. In Russian prisons known as zonas, physical training serves a dual purpose. It builds the body and it forges a mental toughness that the prison hierarchy demands. The training structures used in these facilities borrow heavily from Spetsnaz military conditioning, specifically the pyramid protocol. The concept is straightforward. You start with 1 pull-up, rest for about as long as the rep took. Do 2, rest 3. Keep climbing until you reach 10, then come back down. 1 to 10 and back to 1 totals 100 pull-ups. And an advanced practitioner climbs to 20. That's 400 pull-ups in a single session. The pyramid gets combined with supersets that cycle through the entire upper body. A typical circuit in a Russian prison yard runs like this: 20 standard push-ups, 5 wide grip pull-ups, 20 diamond push-ups, 10 explosive squats, 20 wide push-ups, 20 dips using a bed frame or chair, and 20 leg raises. 3 rounds of that circuit takes 20 to 30 minutes and hits every major muscle group. The critical difference between training in a Russian zona and training in a Western gym is the concept of permitted failure. In most training philosophies, you push to failure and then stop. In the zona, stopping is not an option. If a prisoner can't complete the prescribed reps, he holds the position. Plank, dead hang, bottom of a push-up. He stays there until he can finish. The exercise becomes less about muscle and more about an internal negotiation between pain and willpower. Inmates who've served time in these facilities describe the training as a ritual that separates those who survive psychologically from those who don't. That kind of mental forging through physical punishment reaches its most extreme form in one specific prison on the other side of the world. At Klong Prem Central Prison in Bangkok, Thailand, the government runs a program that most people wouldn't believe exists. Inmates can earn reduced sentences by competing in professional Muay Thai fights against outside challengers. The program, known informally as Prison Fight, means that for some inmates, training isn't about looking good or passing time. It's a direct path to freedom. And that changes everything about the intensity. The training at Klong Prem happens on concrete yards in tropical heat with almost no modern equipment. A typical day starts with an hour of corridor running for baseline cardio. Then 10 to 20 minutes of jump rope using handmade Thai-style ropes, 3 to 5 rounds of shadow boxing. Then the real work begins. 200 to 300 knee strikes thrown into the air, building hip explosion and lower abdominal endurance. 100 to 200 tiger crunches, a sit-up variation designed to armor the midsection against body shots. Hundreds of kicks and knee strikes against old tires or improvised heavy bags made from packed sand. The most distinctive element of Klong Prem training is the bone conditioning. Inmates repeatedly strike their shins against hard surfaces, a traditional Muay Thai practice that creates microfractures in the tibia. As those fractures heal, the bone calcifies and becomes denser. Over months of this process, the shin bone transforms into something closer to a natural weapon, capable of delivering and absorbing impacts that would fracture an untrained person's leg. The motivation factor at Klong Prem is something no commercial gym can replicate. When the reward for peak performance is literal freedom, the distinction between giving effort and giving everything disappears completely. Trainers who have observed the program report that the intensity in those concrete yards consistently exceeds what they see in professional fight camps on the outside. The stakes are simply too high for anything less than maximum output, every single session. 7 methods, 7 different prisons, 7 different countries. And every single one of them proves the same thing. The real lesson from all of this isn't about prison. It's about what happens when you strip away every excuse. No equipment, no perfect diet, no motivational playlist, no mirror, no choice except to either get stronger or get weaker. Every single one of these methods, from the Juarez Valley push-up protocol to the bone-hardening kicks at Klong Prem, was born from the same basic principle. The human body, combined with gravity and relentless consistency, is the most powerful training system ever created. The inmates who developed these methods didn't have access to anything except time, space, and an unwillingness to quit. And they built physiques and strength levels that put most gym-goers to shame. The body is its own gym. Discipline is the only equipment that actually matters. Everything else is just marketing.